This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's Smackdown time. And this is going to be one where you're going to have to put on your asbestos suits just to read the comments, I'm sure. I know you Android fanboys and you iOS fanboys are going to go at it against each other, but we have the iPhone 6 versus the Samsung Galaxy S6. Two, well, obviously, number 6 phones right here. Six appeal, as Samsung likes to say. Both really, really attractive, good-looking phones this time. We're going to look at them now. So here they are side by side, looking not too different. Of course, they are in the same color, Samsung being white, this one being called, well, silver by Apple, but it has the white front. They're available with your choice of black. And in the case of this one, it's called space gray, which is a dark gray with the black face. This is white. And there's also gold. Now, the Samsung version of gold, I've only seen it in person on the Edge, where it looks kind of shiny gold bricky versus the kind of champagne-y gold subtle thing on the iPhone. But that's not the most relevant thing. As you can see from the back, they look quite different. And that gets into the first discussion about these phones. They are both gorgeous phones. They are both glass and metal phones. Obviously, a lot more glass on the Samsung. Samsung has a glass back. Of course, Apple has done that before, and Sony still does that, and it's a great look. But for those of you who tend to drop your phones a lot, well, you might feel a little safer with aluminum. There are cases out there to protect you. We've already seen drop tests, and the Samsung has done pretty well. We've seen the Edge, in fact, drop test, the one with the curvy display here, that could be a little bit more vulnerable, and it's done well. We've seen Square Trade do the bend tests on this. Now, this is getting awfully silly, okay? If you get a machine that exerts 110 pounds of pressure on the poor little phone, that's not a normal use case for your phone. They both will, well, surprise, bend and break. Duh. Okay, so don't expose your phones to heavy machinery and they're fine. Both of these are sturdy enough that I don't worry when I have them in my pocket. Samsung has managed to actually bring down the size of the Galaxy S6 a little bit compared to some previous models, so it's still a pretty pocketable phone. 5.1-inch display versus 4.7-inch display. So for those of you who like bigger displays, that's not a huge difference there, but you can see it helps a little bit, especially if you're reading tiny text or something like that without having to pinch zoom. Also, if you're watching movies, you know, bigger is, well, always better. Next thing is the difference in the display resolution. The iPhone has a much lower resolution display. Now, I've never heard anybody say the iPhone 6 has a crappy looking display. It's actually very pretty, very sharp looking. I mean, the icons look painted on, the usual thing, very colorful. IPS LCD versus Super AMOLED. Super AMOLED has really good black levels. In case of Samsung, they do a very good job with whites, which can be a sore point for Super AMOLED, and super vibrant colors. Now, we're running the Galaxy on the default adaptive color palette right here, and honestly, they both look pretty darn saturated to me, but if I had to pick which display I like better, I have to say the 2560 by 1440 resolution on the Samsung display does make an extra bit difference, and the Super AMOLED just really pops, and when you're doing something, watching a movie, oh wow, it's just really nice looking. Would love to show you a movie, but that's kind of against YouTube rules, so that's why we don't actually show you some pretty cinematic trailers so you can see how it looks for yourself. Now, once again, different, because in every other Galaxy S whatever versus iPhone whatever model, it's always been, okay, Samsung's not so good looking, Apple's really beautiful. Okay, not the case anymore, equally beautifully. It's also been that, well, Samsung had a removable battery and an SD card for expansion, near. Nope, not anymore, both sealed unibody phones. So both of these, if you want extra battery power on the go, you can't swap in a spare battery, you're going to have to get one of those USB or Lightning port, depending on which platform you choose, external battery packs to top up the battery if you're not anywhere near a charger. Both of these are fairly quick to charge. The iPhone is quick to charge. They don't market it as quick charge or anything like this. Samsung came up with their own version of rapid charging, and you can charge about 40% in 30 minutes, which is quicker than the iPhone, but the iPhone's no slouch. I find it typically goes about 30% in as much time. So there you go. Even Steven, when it comes to that, who has the bigger battery? The Samsung has the bigger capacity battery. 2550 or 2600, depending on whether you get the Galaxy S6 or the Galaxy S6 Edge. And here's our Edge model with the curvy glass on the side there so you can see. Now, the iPhone has an 10 milliamp battery, so, well, that's significantly less, isn't it? Aha, but the iPhone has a dual-core A8 CPU versus the octa-core Exynos 7420 CPU here, which is really 4 cores active at a time. 4 low power, 4 high power cores, so it's not like 8 power cores are running at once. Anyway, lower resolution screen, so therefore the battery life is relatively similar on these. The Galaxy S6 runs just around the same as the Galaxy S5 for me, maybe a little bit less if I'm doing a lot of multimedia stuff, but pretty close. iPhone is right up there, and honestly, I've been using both of these as my 2 personal phones for a couple of weeks now, and they last about the same, doing the same tasks on both of the phones. So you can do all sorts of synthetic comparisons, and that's only, you know, so meaningful. It's really real life that counts when you're doing things like streaming video, doing your web browsing, your email, you're having your phone calls, that sort of thing. So fairly close on battery life in our tests. So Samsung also does an interesting thing. They give you 2 options. There's the Galaxy S6 and the Galaxy S6 Edge, which we now have sitting on top of our Galaxy S6. So you get a little extra style going here. Not much more functionality. You can watch our full review of this to find out about it, but it's certainly gorgeous looking, and I think a lot of people are going to like it just for that, and because it doesn't look quite like any other phone, thanks to the dual curved sides on this phone. With Apple, you get your iPhone 6, or you get your iPhone 6 Plus if you want a bigger version of that. So we give points to Samsung for having the option. Yes, this does cost $100 more, so you're going to have to pay for it. But honestly, all 3 of these phones, they're all quite expensive phones. All of them offer ample internal storage also if you're willing to spend the money. The iPhone's available in 16, 64, or 128 gig capacity. Samsung starts with 32 gig for the base model, then there's 64 and 128 gig. In either case, Apple or Samsung, you're going to pay $100 for each additional storage increment. So if you're looking at base level storage, it's obvious that Apple really doesn't want you to get the base level iPhone unless you really don't have much in the way of storage needs. Samsung gives you more room to start with. So how about camera? We're in the viewfinder for each right now, as you can see right here, and our usual bath toys in the background. It's amazing how Apple has an 8 megapixel camera here. Now it has larger pixel size, sort of like what HTC did with the HTC One M8, but they're using a higher megapixel count, thank goodness, compared to the M8. Anyway, so it's good in low light, and it's just 8 megapixels, but it does kick the pants off of a lot of other camera phones on the market when it comes to image quality. As ever, your shooting options are pretty, you know, basic here. You got slow-mo, you got regular video, you got photo, you got square photo, you got panorama, HDR control, flash control. It's pretty simple stuff. And we got some filter effects now, which for Apple was a big step, you know, forward. They kind of like to keep things pretty darn simple, and we'll go with back to normal. Now, the Samsung, on the other hand, they give you more features, but they have actually slimmed down their camera UI a whole lot. Right here. So you can see we can switch our front back camera, you can switch to video, whatever. Tracking autofocus. This also has optical image stabilization, something that you get on the iPhone 6 Plus, but you don't get on the regular iPhone. Effects right here. So a bit more to work with. They both can do slow-mo video, that sort of thing. Which camera shoots better pictures? I have to say the Galaxy S6 has the edge for me, not just because you got more pixels, so that means you can crop in, since nobody wants to use digital zoom, it really degrades the quality, but this guy just has really good, sharp image quality with more detail compared to the iPhone 6. In low light, it used to be Samsung kind of, well, they stunk, but they've improved that a lot with this. Now, if you watch our full review, you can see some low light shots. It's actually not bad. So these cameras are not that far apart, but I would give the edge to the Samsung Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge. Also, it has 4K video recording too. And switching to the front camera on this, 5 megapixel camera versus 1.2 megapixel front camera on our iPhone. As you can guess, which one's going to look better? It's going to be the Samsung. So for those of you who are, well, into selfies, yeah, but video chat too, that's pretty important there. And we have that feature where you can put your finger on the back of the heart rate sensor right there to use it as your shutter button for taking selfies. Cute. It helps. It works. While we're speaking of the heart rate sensor, of course, Samsung always has features out the wazoo. So you get a heart rate sensor back here for your health. You put your finger there, rest it, hold it. You're going to find out how high or low your pulse is at a given time. They also have the IR blaster up here for AV remote control, which for those of you who live with 5,000 remotes sitting on your coffee table can be a nice touch. And it uses the Peel remote control application, which also has TV grid listings and stuff like that. Now with our iPhone, because the accessory ecosystem is so darn rich, you can go and you can get yourself a plug-in IR blaster if you want. You can get just about any kind of accessory in the world for this. Samsung does decently, but for those of you who are accessory holics, you just love getting a million cases, your AV remote control, all sorts of Bluetooth audio products that are geared towards use with the iPhone, you got your AirPlay stuff, it's all here. And there's another important point. When we talk about ecosystem, the iPhone has a great ecosystem, and they've just improved it. Now, for those of you who own Macs, we got handoff and continuity, so that means that you've got something up on the web browser, on your desktop. You want to take your phone and, well, take a little bathroom break and go read or go sit on the train, you can pick up on your web browser right on the iPhone. If you've got iMessages coming in, it comes in on the phone, it can come in on your Mac and on your iPad, so no matter where you are, you can see your text messages, your picture messages, all that sort of thing. It's really pretty nice, and that extends right into Keynote, and Pages, and Apple's iWork suite as well. So that's a nice touch, only if you own a Mac, though. If you use a Windows PC or a Linux PC, whatever you got there, no, you're not going to get it then. How about call quality and data speed? Let's face it, we still do make phone calls, at least I do, good on the Galaxies and on the iPhone. Honestly, they're all available on all major carriers, and they'll be available on some smaller carriers as well, all around the same price at that, too. And I can't say that I prefer one over the other when it comes to call quality. They're all quite good. Data speeds are similar on these. We run speedtest.net to test on each of these phones, and you get the same speeds. Of course, that's going to vary more by where you live and what carrier you're using than anything else. These have LTE 4G and 3G, and depending on your carrier, whether it's Verizon and Sprint, you'll have CDMA for voice or GSM for voice if you're on T-Mobile and AT&T. So, which phone is the best? That is pretty darn tricky to pick there, and a lot of it's going to depend on which platform you prefer, which ecosystem. If you really enjoy iOS, probably Android isn't going to float your boat, but you never know. It might. The customizability is pretty neat on this. You can put whatever icons you want. You can change your look, make the phone yours. Other people say, good God, I just want my same straightforward, user interface. Both of these have drop-down notifications now, not so much different there. You can get your weather. You can find out what's been going on. I still think Android has a little bit of an edge. I like the Google Lollipop card system for giving notifications. One more important thing when it comes to search, because Google owns the operating system for the Galaxy system, I like search better on these because you get the instant autocomplete kind of thing. You start typing in your search, it's already hooking into Google. With the iPhone, it's kind of a two-step thing. You type something in there, and it gives you the option of searching the Wikipedia or the web. For some reason, the web isn't showing up right now. It's still trying to find songs and stuff like that. Seems a little more geared toward local search of the device, in my opinion, searching your iTunes library, that sort of thing. So for those of you who Google an awful lot and like that sort of autocomplete that happens right there, it's one step ahead of you almost in finding search results. You're probably going to like the Samsung and Android a bit better. No matter what, you're getting a strong phone. Obviously, on features, as always, Samsung is going to win. They got the IR remote, they got the heart rate sensor, they have the nominally better specs right there. You got the faster CPU, you have the higher resolution display. Now, in terms of benchmarks and using either of these, does one seem noticeably faster than the other? No, they don't. On single core tests, actually the iPhone still scores slightly higher with its little dual core, 2-core. Since this has 4 cores, the multi-core score is going to be higher on this. It also depends on whether an application is going to use all those cores. Experientially, they feel about the same in terms of speed, so don't get too hung up on the specs there. These days, it also depends on what your friends are using. If you're more into the Google system with your friends versus the iOS system, vice versa. For example, my family is really into iMessage, and I know you Android people are going to say, what's so special? It's just kind of hard to understand until you start using iMessage. It's just pretty darn cool the way you can use voice, images, video, and text to very seamlessly message anybody. So, up to you and what your family's using. Now, if it was my choice, I think I would go with the Galaxy S6 Edge. I do have family pressure to keep using that iPhone 6, however, so there it is. It's going to be tough. So there it is, head-to-head, 2 phones with gorgeous designs at your choice of either glass or aluminum on the finish, gold, black, silver. It's there for you. Or you can call it sort of like white, really, right? And you know the spiel. Either way, you're getting a really good phone. And a lot of it should depend on which ecosystem you prefer. If you like Android and customizability, Well, then the Galaxy is going to be for you if you like the iPhone ecosystem, the very simple, easy to use. You don't care about customizing your phone a lot, but you love all the accessories out there. Your family uses an iPhone, you're into iMessage as a result and all that sort of stuff. Or if you use a Mac with handoff and continuity, it's really a pleasure to use an iPhone or an iPad with that. Those should be your deciding points. As ever, Samsung is going to win on specs. They always do. They put everything but the kitchen sink in here. They have a fast CPU. They have a higher resolution display. iPhone fights back with gorgeous design, simplicity, great support, that sort of stuff, and a system that's pretty easy to use. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website to read the full written reviews, watch our full video reviews, and hit that subscribe button.